Hello, and welcome. I'm going to give a couple moments for people to jump on. Welcome. Let me know that you're here. So if you're watching the replay or you're jumping on live, or if you're watching this from our YouTube, then comment there as well. So I'm always trying to make sure I check the comments. It might take me a couple of days sometimes when we're other places, just because there's a lot of moving parts and pieces to juggle in. But this is the community that I've created because I love it. So comment and let me know that you're here. Any questions that come up, that sort of thing. We're going to do this little check that we need to do with the comments because it always seems to do some little delay. So we'll move into that, give a moment. And I think we've got it. We'll see if I can start seeing comments. That'll usually give me a little more information as to what is coming up. All right, there we go. Okay, so I will make a note actually on this. So if you're going to watch the replay, I'm going to stick it in here that you can always jump forward to about that minute and 30 seconds, which is about where we really are beginning. All right, so welcome. We are going to talk today about really a foundational part of the movement for the Aligned Human Project, which is about coherence. And so, a lot of the times we are wanting to come more into alignment or trying to figure out why am I struggling? And so if it's your first time with me, then I'll let you know. So 12 years ago, I began with a question of why do some people heal and some people don't? Come on in, hun. My lovely Bessie's bringing me coffee. Thanks, honey.
You're welcome.
So why do some people heal and some people don't? And then how do we shift this in our own life? And so I began this question 12 years ago, trying to heal from mental and emotional and physical abuse, and trying to figure out how do you let this go? How do I not carry this with me through my whole life? And trying to let go of resentment, trying to let go of pain, trying to let go of the loops that I'd really get caught inside my head. And that were starting to show up in physical patterns. And so I was introduced 12 years ago to Louise Hay's work, You Can Heal Your Life. And so how, really the beginning of psychosomatics or psychoneuroimmunology. So how does the physical body get impacted by our emotions, by our thoughts, by our beliefs? And it began the journey. And so 12 years ago, that started. 8 years ago, I asked that question and doubled down and wanted to know, how do people heal from physical issues after having a brain injury and nervous system dysregulation? And I was worried. I was scared that I would never heal, and I wanted to try and figure it out. The doctors said they could do nothing for me. And it began the journey of meditation and mindfulness. And it actually began the journey of a spiritual awakening, which started the work that I do now, kind of really going deeply into it. And so what came through this was some pretty straight out answers. And after 12 years, I can answer the question. So why do some people heal and some people don't? Well, the very first answer to that is because people don't feel safe to heal. It's that simple. And so if we do not feel safe to heal, then we won't. And often we look for safety outside of ourselves, and we're taught to do that. We're taught as children to look to our parents for our safety, for security, for belonging and love. And although that should give us the foundation, which teaches us that there's safety and security, belonging and love within the home, for many of us, there's not that. But then the other place that comes out of is also into our environment, whether that is through church or other spiritual communities, whether that is through school. So we have lots of pieces that give us this foundational piece, or beliefs inside of us that start to form. And the problem is we're looking outside of ourselves for something only we can give ourselves. And so even when we find safety and security within a relationship, often what it is actually giving us is the space, the opportunity to start exploring it within ourselves. And so if we still only get safety and security, say, from our spouse, then we will panic or freak out if the idea of losing our spouse ever comes up, because we still don't have true safety and security, which comes from within. And so, and where this starts to be seen is this split, this divide. And so that's what I want to talk about today, is how do we come back into alignment? What is the aligned human? How do we create this experience that seems so far out there and can seem like such a big, grandiose idea, but how do we bring it into real life? And so the last couple of weeks on my podcast, I have done the divine feminine and healing the divine feminine and the need to heal that within ourselves so that we can heal the divine masculine. And so, what we experience in the world around us within patriarchy and matriarchy is actually the dysfunction of these energies, the yin and the yang, the feminine and the masculine. And they're not based on our gender. We all have the divine masculine and the divine feminine within us. And when there's a distortion or a suppression of the feminine, then we get a distortion of the masculine because they work together, and we need these two to come into harmony to create coherence. And so you can think of mind heart coherence. And so think about this, we repressed the feminine, which caused us to, stop listening to our intuition, to stop being connected to our bodies. I mean, I would say the majority of people I work with have some type of dissociation, which isn't really surprising because that's what I experienced for myself 12 years ago, was sitting in the doctor's office and her asking questions like, how do you feel today? And I'd be like, good. And she'd be like, really? Because you're here for this pain. And I'm like, oh yeah. And she's like, so no pain today? And I'm like, oh no, yeah, I have pain, but I just could totally dissociate from my body. And that's an action of the suppressed feminine energy within us. And so there was a saying that I heard from Michael Singer, and he had said, the head is the place the soul goes to hide from the heart. I'll repeat that. The head is the place the soul goes to hide from the heart. So when it doesn't feel safe to feel, to be present within ourselves, we will go up to the intellectual, which is the masculine energy in our bodies. And so our experience of the masculine energy tends to be more intellectual as opposed to the intuitive. It's a balance of both. It's not one over the other, which is what we've created in our world around us, is this highly intellectualized experience. And then we create this fight, this war of trying to become more intuitive, more somatic based. And so we try to suppress the masculine, and that's not what we need to do. So we're trying to create this coherence. And so as we heal the feminine energy within us, the masculine energy gets the space and opportunity to heal as well. So we get flow instead of force. And so we're moving into a different type of power. So even the word power often is, really quite dysfunctional now because we think of power as a very masculine energy. But our real power comes from deep within ourselves and is really driven by our feminine energy. That's the power that nobody can take from us. And so as we start shifting and finding this balance within ourselves, we start to experience a different life, it's almost like an alternate reality for ourselves. It's not that everything else really has changed, but we can start to see things a little bit differently. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So I call it the split within us. So when we are divided within ourselves, then we're going to experience a world divided around us. And that's because law 1 is the law of becoming. And in the law of becoming is your beliefs are what create your thoughts create your emotions. And this is kind of 101. I'm bringing it really simple. So you have beliefs, we get them downloaded before the age of 8 for the majority of them. Our beliefs are what create our thoughts. So our beliefs are what create our expectations. They create our judgments, and they create our thoughts. Our thoughts about things are all come back to the beliefs that we have about the world around us and how things should be. And so we have these thoughts or these beliefs that create our thoughts, and then the thoughts create the emotions, and the combination of this is what creates our exterior environment. Think about when I have a thought and then I have an emotion, it's going to change my facial expressions. It's going to change the tone of my voice. It's going to change my physical reactions. It's even going to change the frequency or the energy people can feel from me. And so all of that is being really caused at the base level is by our beliefs. And so we need to be aware of what's happening. And so when we have this split, it's because we're not aware. And the more awareness that we have, the quicker and easier it is for us to correct it. So the split. So when I'm going to look at this like really simply. I've got the list in front of me. So the inner split is what happens when your inner feminine is silenced and your inner masculine is overworked. So there's an overcompensation from our other energies in us. So what it looks like. So the emotional signs of the split would be numbness, it would be resentment, overwhelm, emotional exhaustion, and feeling disconnected from yourself, feeling very dissociated. Behavioral signs of the split would look like people pleasing. So we're going outside of us to get our needs fulfilled. So people pleasing, over functioning, hyper productivity. So this is like hustle mentality, inability to rest. So I was talking to somebody and they were feeling sick and they were like, I think I'm just not going to go and do some stuff I was supposed to be doing tonight. I'm going to rest because I'm not feeling well. I think I'm getting sick. And as soon as it came out of their mouth, they're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much guilt and shame for not just sucking it up and going. And I was like, oh, no. Your job is to rest. And so holding that space that we stay there and how important that is. So when we get into this inability to rest, we think we need to go and go and go, and we're sloths if we just take the break and allow ourselves to just and decompress. And then there's the avoidance of truth. And so the way that I would say this behavioral sign shows up is we dodge ourselves. I'm going to do a bit of a live on this later on as well, but it's going to be basically on this one topic, which is our avoidance. And so we avoid ourselves. So one of the tasks I give clients is to brain dump. And I want everybody to brain dump every single morning or all throughout their day, whenever they're triggered, whenever they're having an emotion that's not joy, love, presence, then I want us to dump it so that we create it into form, but it's contained form, and then we can control that, have awareness, and then respond. So it's to stop us from reacting to the world around us and start helping us have some awareness so we can start responding and understanding like, oh, I'm super triggered here, but the trigger's mine. It's actually not the person that's bumping it. And so we're creating this awareness to it. And so often what we'll do is we'll avoid doing this because we do not want to know what our inner thoughts, our inner beliefs, our inner experience is, because we judge ourselves. And so when we judge ourselves and we shame ourselves for thinking negatively about people or anything, then we start to create this disconnection here as well. So most people think their problem is burnout, but burnout is actually a symptom. It's actually not a root cause. And that's really important for us to understand. As a person that was pretty close to burnout when I got hurt, I would never, first off, that was an insult to me to even say that I was going to burn out. And then the second portion of that was that I wasn't really burnt out. What was really happening was I was very split inside. And so I talk a lot about this within my own journey of getting hurt and understanding that I needed something to stop me, because where I was in, I was at it so deeply into the hustle, so deeply into driving force, so deeply into this split that it was like it was either this or I was going to crash and burn in terms of like a stroke or a heart attack. Like it was way out of control. And so how we come into this. So the piece I want to talk about is the feminine part that we silence. And so, first, like if we take a look at the law of reflection. So the law of reflection, law 2, is really about what is happening inside of us is what's mirroring outside of us. So law 1, the law of becoming, helps us understand what is creating what is inside of us. Law 2 helps us understand what we're seeing around us is a reflection of what we're seeing inside of us. And often when we're triggered by somebody doing something, it is because we have that inside of us and we don't want to look at it. We don't want to acknowledge it. We excuse behavior, but then when somebody else is doing it, we don't accept that excuse. And this is pretty common. So law of reflection, it's like the mirror law. So what is within reflects all around us in our life. And so when the feminine is ignored, our frequency collapses inward. And so when we are ignoring our intuition, when we're ignoring our somatic experience, when we're ignoring the body, things start to fall apart. We start to collapse, and it is very much an inward collapse, which looks like what we term in daily life right now as burnout. We override our intuition. It is a major issue. Our intuitive gifts are what really make us beautiful and unique creatures. And we often think we need to jump to the intellect to explain why we think something or we're going to do something. And sometimes we can't explain it. It's just so clear to us what we need to do next. I just need to call this person, or I just need to turn left even though I usually drive straight. And we can't explain it. There's just a pull or a draw. Often what will happen is we'll ignore it because it doesn't make sense to us, or we're questioned by other people and we'll cave to them. This is my experience where I've given up my intuitive hits where I've like, this is not right for me, and I just keep on going and it hurts me. And so when I look back at my life, and I love doing reflection work, so when I've looked back at every major suffering that I've gone through, I've ignored my intuition every single time. Every single time. And maybe my intuition wasn't saying no at the very beginning of something, but there was a point along the way where it was like, we've got a problem here, and I overrode it. Oh, we're already going in, we're already too deep, I don't want to back out, like whatever that looks like. We have a problem. What would they think? What would people say? All that stuff, but it always becomes an issue. And then we disconnect. So when we ignore our intuition, we disconnect from our inner truth. And so our ability to hear the messages from our body get harder to hear. It gets harder to understand what is going on within ourselves. So we're taught that intuition is irrational, rest is lazy, and softness is weakness. These are all aspects of our feminine energy. We see it in women, period, and we really see it in men. And so remember, I said the divine feminine is within all of us, not in some of us. So it's not a gender thing. We all have the divine feminine within us. And when we suppressed women, we also suppress this energy in men. And so men also have these same intuitive gifts. This isn't a gender thing where women are more intuitive than men are at all. This is an energetic experience, and energy is neutral. And so when we understand what is going on within us, then we can start to bring it back to life. So this is not just for women. And so teaching even our children, our boys, our sons to hone into this and to trust it and not allow them to minimize the experience is really, really important. So when we bury this feminine and then wonder why we can't feel ourselves anymore. So we sit here and disconnect, and then we're like, why is this happening to me? And so the only way to reverse this is to actually start activating it in ourselves again. Start to play with it. Start to explore what this can look like. So some examples. There may be, I just explained the one. So to pushing through anyways. The intuitive hits of dating somebody. Where you push through because you're worried. You're concerned that you want to have a family or nobody else is going to love you. So you just take what you can get. This feels normal, even though you know it's not safe and it's not right. Those are all ways that we can really ignore this. Okay, so then the distorted masculine. So if we're taking a look at this, so the part that takes over. So we've suppressed the feminine, we've left only the masculine, and it has to carry the whole load. And so it becomes distorted and it becomes overworked. And so when the feminine collapses, the masculine tries to do everything, which is pretty funny because women are often, we hit menopause and women get really resentful because they do everything. And everybody kind of looks at us. We controlled it. We did everything. It was a control tactic to feel safe and secure. So we try to control everything. We finally get burnt out, and then we snap at everybody because we're doing everything, not recognizing that doing everything in control behavior was all masculine energy. And so the need for us to course correct this isn't, they need to change their ways as well, but we've trained them. And so getting mad at somebody for doing the things that we train them to do isn't really helpful to us and to our relationships. And so part of this is learning how to acknowledge it, to bring awareness to it. Like, I recognize that I've done this, but I can't do it anymore. I'm burnt out. So this isn't like for the next week you guys are going to help with laundry. This is like, we're going to reevaluate the chores and the work all around the house in every aspect of our lives. And we're all going to have to start shifting because I can't do this and compensate anymore. But there's also for yourself recognizing where we took this on And that's imperative because self-awareness, self-responsibility is where we get all of our power back. So we don't get any of our power back when we blame other people for our experience right now. We need to be able to take a look at it and see where we participated in that. So the distortion. So signs of the distorted masculine. Control. When we control everything around us. Oh, I'll just do it. Oh, I've got that. It's fine. You know what? I can just do it better than you think. If it doesn't come out of our mouth, usually we think it. So control. Control is a major issue. I am a recovering control freak. I used to be a control freak and a AAA type personality. I have had to learn that this is dysfunctional behavior that is a trauma response. And it is not healthy, and it is not only not necessary, it is very damaging. So I always say now when people are like, who here's a control freak? And I'm like, I'm recovering. Like I'm in active recovery right now. So this is where I work from. Hyper independence, right behind control freak. Like it's ridiculous how far this goes. Hustle. I used to work an 80-hour work week. It's not that I don't, like people look at me and go, how the hell do you do everything that you do now? But it brings me so much joy. So there's a few parts of my work right now where I'm like, this is a lot. Like I edit all my own podcasts. I edit all my own YouTubes. I would love to be able to hand that off to somebody soon. So that is part of building things up. But I was like, but I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to bring the Aligned Human Project into a global movement. And so there's an incredible amount of joy where I'm just super present. While I'm here, I'm not doing the next client. I'm not doing whatever has on my list later on. I'm just right here having this conversation. And so joy, being present in the moment. So joy is created by being completely present. We're not in the past. Not 10 minutes ago, not last year, not in our childhood. And we're not in the future, not what's going to happen later on today, what's going to happen next. We're just in this moment so we can have a state of joy. And so there's no likes or dislikes. It's just the beautiful present eternal moment. And so joy plus a long-term goal allows us to have enthusiasm for our life. When we have enthusiasm is being in a flow state. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't need to rest. It doesn't mean that sometimes I don't go, okay, I'm taking tonight off and I'm just like decompressing. I do. But this is how we move through it. The difference between this, through enthusiasm, flow stating, and hustle is a forcing. It is I need to make it happen myself. This was really difficult for me when I started to look at prayer, when I started to look at co-creation. I was so well entrained that if I wanted something done, I needed to do it myself. That the very concept of working with the universe, with working with source, was so foreign to me. I used to have to ask, well, how do you ask? How do you pray? And even that gets distorted because often we're taught to pray is to ask for something. And when you actually look at the ancient texts, go back into the Torah, there's tons of work about this, the energy of belief, and belief as a way of healing comes from it's already happened. So real prayer isn't actually asking for anything. It's thanking. It's thanking for what's already in play. Whether you're experiencing it yet or not is not actually the part. It's already done. It's already been there. You've already had the thought. It's already done. And so when we get into that deep state of prayer, that is very different from force and hustle and making everything happen. And that was definitely a place that I used to live in quite comfortably. And then the other piece is overthinking. So obviously I've spent the last 12 years going and trying to examine every single little thing to get to this place where I can get to a state of at ease. And so especially I would say the first 10 years out of the 12, I've been on a surrender experiment now for 6-7 years. And I remember the first year I had surrender as my word of the year because I put a new word for my year every year in January. And I'd surrender, and I got to the end in December. I'm like, oh, you did pretty good. And then I really looked at it, I was like, no, not so awesome. So I had to have surrender as my word of the year for 3 solid years. And still, I have to actively work on the practice of letting go of control, hence recovering. So being able to come into this state of surrender, and overthinking kind of is trying to make sure we do it all right. And so that perfectionism that can come from this. And so one of the things that helps us with this is the law of dominion. And so the law of dominion is really self responsibility. It's the law of accountability. And so understanding that burnout happens when you run your life from one half of yourself. Again, it's all about us becoming aware. And once we're aware of something, we can start changing things. And you can't pour from a split cup. So I say this because the moment that we put it back together, it automatically fills. And so this is part of the problem. It's like a sieve. All this life force is coming, but it's pouring right back out of us because we can't hold. And so once we can bring ourselves back together, now instead of it just draining through us, we're able to direct it into the place that we want it with intention. So intention and awareness was what allows us to steer the boat. And so we can't pour from a split cup. When we're split, it will never fill. No amount of rest is going to change it. We need to come back into harmony with ourselves. The more harmonized we become, the stronger it gets. It's that simple. Maybe not that easy, but it is that simple. And then you don't need more discipline. You need more coherence. A lot of the times we're like, oh, I got to do this and I got to do this and I got to do this. And we're really strict about the way that we do things. And then we can't do it and we beat ourselves up. And so it's not about discipline. It's about finding that coherence and that alignment. It's the middle path. Not too hard, not too strong. We're looking for the middle path. And the middle path has some room. And so we just kind of sway through it. It's not like this hard line. And so we're creating this flow, this coherence within ourselves. And so we're trying to bring a state of where our thoughts and our feelings and our actions all come into alignment. And that's what helps us really stay into a state of flow. When the field and the form are misaligned, your energy leaks. And so what I mean by that is exactly what I just said. So your field is your beliefs, your thoughts, your emotions, including your chakras, your meridians. Those are all field energies. And that is what creates form. So this energy solidifies and we get a form response. That would be in our cells. When we see this in action, you're going to go from thought to emotion to words to reactions. Those are all things that are creating form. And so field always precedes form. And there's no way around it. These are the laws. Science fully supports them. This is where we're at. And so we need to come back into coherence inside, in our inner world, in the field, so that we can create coherence in our outer world, in the world all around us, and make a different impact. So the first steps to healing the split. So you cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. So like I said, give everybody brain dumping. My first session when I do one-on-one work, no matter which program we're working through, brain dumping is the first thing I have everybody do. It is the one thing that I don't negotiate on for myself. I can blatantly say I can notice a difference between the days I do it and the days I don't. Brain dumping can be a form of emptying your mind of all the dissonance. So all the worries, all the concerns, anxieties, stresses, all those things, we just dump it onto paper. So we're controlling the form that it's coming in. As we start dumping that information, we start getting some alignment. So it might be that we start remembering, oh, I got to do this. Oh, if I just do this, I won't have that happen. And so we start answering our own worries and concerns. And we do it in a way that's not spewing it into the world. And so we're containing or controlling the way that this information is coming out. It also allows us to become aware of our beliefs that are sitting underneath our thoughts. And so we need to ask questions. So I always love brain dumping with questions. Why am I feeling this way? Where is this thought coming from? If I get judgy, it's always a defensive motion for me. So if I'm becoming defensive and I judge something, then the question is, why are you becoming so defensive? What is the expectation that was not met so that you're judging this as bad or good? And then once I see the expectation, where's that expectation comes from? What is the belief that is sitting underneath this that is driving that? Good to see you, Bobby. And so we what is it that goes into this? And so brain dumping is my non-negotiable. I fought doing this for months, years. I don't like journaling. I have a whole bunch of trauma around writing things out and being mocked and all sorts of stuff for it. So there's a whole bunch of stuff of trauma around it. And so I made a point of it this year that I was going to get rid of everything. I was going to trigger the shit out of myself and get it gone. When I was in Greece, my coach was like, everybody's going to brain dump. She calls it creative writing. And I was like, no. And she's like, yep, sets the timer, 13 of us in a circle. And she said, if you don't want to do it, Dawn, you can just start with, this is stupid and Sarah's making me do it. So I did. For half a page, I wrote, this is stupid. I don't want to do this. Sarah's making me do this. I don't want to do this. Like, I whined and complained for the first half. And all of a sudden I started getting some flow and I started getting clarity on the question that we had asked. I made the deal that I would brain dump for 90 days straight, first thing in the morning when I woke up. After 90 days, what I can tell you is that would have taken me till September 21st. So I did 90 days where I agreed to do brain dumping and intention work right afterwards. Brain dumping I do in black. That's because neuroscience shows us that we remember things in blue ink. So I brain dump only in black ink because I don't want to remember that stuff. Like, I don't want to embed it deeper into my subconscious. So I brain dump in black and then I do my intentions in blue. After the first about 70 days, 75 days, all of a sudden I started getting clarity. So I triggered, add questions, got all these deeply embedded beliefs out, actively worked with my coaches to work and get them released and change my thoughts around them. Moved through all these things, released a bunch of trauma work. And then as I was actively going through all of that, I started to have things shift. So then all of a sudden I had this really clear answer one day while I was in session. Your 12 years of training is over. And I had not realized it had been 12 years since I began asking the question, why do some people heal? And I was like, 12 years of training are over. What are you talking about? And I'm claircognizant, so my way of intuition comes, a lot of it is from a download. And so I was like, what does that mean? And so I started making a note that the laws were not complete. I'd received the first 7 laws of co-creation through Carolyn Mace, through her work. And it was like, but it's not complete. If the laws were complete, you wouldn't reference all this other work. And so then I started downloading. And so all of a sudden I opened up my channel to be able to download the information and compile the information. And so over the next 6 weeks, I compiled the information for Field and Form. And that finished on October 1st. October 4th, my kids got married. I'd handed my husband my final work of the 12 laws, showing it in science as well as mysticism. And then we left for New York. And the first day in New York on the 7th was Women Creating Movement. And I downloaded the Aligned Human Project. And so then that became a force. And it was like all of a sudden, everything I'd been working together was there sitting in front of me. What was fascinating was watching all this work and then all the supporting stuff coming afterwards and creating all these projects. And we all have this. This isn't like me being special. We're all special. You know, every single one of us is a spark of divinity. We are part of the divine matrix. And we all have access to this. The question is, what's blocking it? And that was the question I would ask at the end of every brain dump. What is blocking me from my own ascension? What's blocking me from self-realization? What's blocking me from living my own legacy? What's blocking me? And then show it. And so I'd purposely, that's what I mean when I say purposely triggering myself to get to these answers. And so I would use brain dumping. And so that's where I say, you know, the very first thing is awareness plus honesty plus sensation. So we need to have the awareness, what's blocking me. And we need to become aware of these limiting beliefs. And they can be hard because if we got these beliefs from a parent, then we might feel disloyal to our parents by changing our beliefs about it. To really delve in and look at it, we might feel guilt and shame because we've had this belief for a long time and maybe it's hurt people. And instead, we want to do is bring compassion into it. I don't beat myself up for my limiting beliefs because they came from somewhere. And I don't beat them up because they got it from somewhere. So what's the point? And so instead, we just become aware of what's in us so we can start making a choice. And choice is the key to everything. Now we can start making a conscious choice. What do I want to believe? What do I choose to believe for myself? Who do I choose to be? How do I choose to show up today? And so we start making choice be the driving force instead of these things that are under the surface that are driving us that we're not paying attention to. And the body tells us the truth long before the mind does. So often that's that intuitive piece. So we might get a clutching in our gut that says no, but intellectually we're like, oh, of course I'll do that. And it's like, but you got the clutch that said no. And so we want to check in with our body. What's this about? And taking the pause and the breath, like, is this clutched because I'm being triggered with a wound? Is this clutched because intuitively I don't feel like this is a good idea? What is that? And so taking the space to actually get really curious about it. And so that would be like, I was giving you an awareness moment. So those are the awareness moments. So going into these moments and being able to become aware of what is there, and then starting to create the alignment. And alignment comes from awareness. It's an awareness practice. Why does everybody say you need to meditate? And meditation is an awareness practice. Meditation gives you the space to become aware of your limiting beliefs that cause your expectations, that causes your judgments, that causes your thoughts, and causes your feelings. That's the practice of meditation. It's awareness. We become mindful. We become aware and present with ourselves. Brain dumping is another form that we can use to help us get there, so that we make our entire life a walking, living prayer. I am so grateful. I am so thankful. I am so happy. And so we do this by being in a present state with life around us, with ourselves. The internal inquiry. When we're brain dumping, 3 questions that we can ask when we're starting on this particular piece of bringing ourselves back into coherence is, what does my feminine need? What does my feminine need? I go deeply into this in the podcast of the Divine Feminine. So if you listen to the one on the Divine Feminine, I give a whole bunch of things that we can see what the needs and stuff are of the feminine. And then the next question would be, what does my masculine need? There's a podcast that does the masculine as well. So both of those are there. This podcast that goes out this week is on this. So the last 3 are really about this exact piece here. And so what do we need to go into? And then what have I been pretending not to feel? What have I been pretending not to feel? This comes back to what I was saying about sometimes we feel guilty or we feel ashamed of things that we're feeling. And I want you to actually dump it, because you resisting it is still causing that to echo out into the field around you. And so we need to get it onto paper so that we can get it out of us and it can lose its control over us. And so dumping is the best gift I can give you all. It's like my early Christmas present is brain dumping. So getting all of this stuff out of us. I have put in the description today the link for doing the alignment audit. And so, if you want to see exactly where the split is happening, you can start there. I've also put the link in the description today for the daily, the Burnout to Alignment Blueprint. So a daily practical guide to help restoring that coherence. And then if you're interested in going even deeper, then the Align Your Life group begins on Sunday. And so that is a separate group that is about the laws of co-creation, where I dive deeply into one law each month. We're going to begin with the law of becoming. And so every month I dive into a different law. And if you're watching this after Sunday, it's not too late. So the recordings are going to be there and Kajabi, so you'll be able to watch the recordings, as well as very evergreen. So I'll continuously go through these month after month. It's a never-ending process as everything deepens and aligns anyway. So we just keep getting more information. But I look at them from business, from personal life, from your relationships, from healing, from physical healing. So all the components and how these laws have helped me heal, help me answer the question and live the answer. How do we heal ourselves? Why do some people heal and some people don't? How do we feel safe and secure and belonging and love from within ourselves? These laws are how I did it. And so this is the 12 years of work kind of coming together in this practice. And so, and I've given you the link in the description as well. If you're watching this from over on the YouTube side, then I invite you to join our Awakening Circle. You can see all those pieces in there as well. And that will help guide you into a community that is really about being the best versions of ourselves, the most loving, most unified versions of ourselves as we come into this work together. I think that is all I have for you today. So remember, with your alignment isn't out there. It begins with you coming home to yourself. It is always, always, always an inside job. All right, you guys, I hope you have an amazing day. I look forward to chatting with you soon. I'm going to be popping on I'm probably going live through Instagram on the next one, and it'll come through on Facebook afterwards, but I'm going to be doing one on brain dumping and when we get to a belief and how that brings you through. So like the lotus, we go through the mud, through the darkness, through the shadows to come out and get the gift. And that's what we're going to chat about in a little while. All right, I hope you have an amazing day. I look forward to seeing you again soon. If you have any questions at all about any of these things, if you want more information about those coaching programs, please throw me a message and I'll be happy to chat with you on it. All right, bye for now.